Welcome to the Driveway Garage. Today, I'm trying to get where I don't have so much glare here. I'm working on a 97 Buick Park Avenue Ultra. I'm going to replace the front valve cover gasket because it's leaking pretty good and I don't want the car catching on fire. I'm getting ready to sell it. Anyway, they're building a house right next to my property, so it's kind of noisy. But I'm going to take you out there and show you what I'm up to. So I'll flip this camera around and we'll go outside. So here's the engine. I've already taken the cover off. If you don't know how to do that, you have to twist the oil fill cap off, get that out of the way, and then the cover just lifts up off of there. Now, this is the valve cover I'm going to be working on, and I'm going to mark the spark plug wires. That's what I was going to get when I was inside, as a magic marker. Wish I had a white one, but I don't. But I'm going to label these 1, 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. That way I can take them off, get them out of the way, give me a little bit more room right here. I don't know if that will pop off of there or not, but there's a plastic cover here that goes over the spark plug wires. It's supposed to have a couple clips on it. I reached down here. Mine is already loose. It'll just come right off, so that's not going to be a problem. I'm not sure how you would loosen it if it did have clips on it. And then it has, I think, 5 or 6 10mm bolts to hold it on. You can see in these holes here. I'm not sure exactly where they are, but I'll find out here shortly. Then you gotta get the valve cover gasket out of there, clean everything really good, and I've got my new gasket here that'll go on something like that, but I'm not sure exactly how until I get the old one off and clean it all up. Just want to show you guys what I'm doing and kind of how to do it. It's not going to be detailed as good as it could be because they're working 10 feet next to me, maybe 20, so it might be a little noisy. I don't know. First thing I'm going to do is get a magic marker. I'm going to label these. I think that'll mark them good enough I can pull them off without losing track where they go. And then I'll get this harness out of the way, or this cover. And I'm going to get my dipstick out of the way. They say you got to be careful you don't break those off. I'll get these. Some guys said 3/8, some guys said 10mm. Maybe they're close to the same. I'll get those bolts out of there. And then, mine isn't so dirty in behind there. It's just oily from leaking, so I might get my leaf blower and blow on it just to make sure there's nothing loose in there. But otherwise, I'm just going to take that off of there and get it cleaned up and put it back on. And I'll show you as I go. I got those labeled. I got 1, 4, 5, 2, 3, and 6. Hopefully that'll last long enough to put them back on. And I'll get this out of the way now. I might just go ahead and pull the dipstick out of there because nothing's going to fall down there, I don't think. And I grabbed a 10mm socket, put it on my little drill. Let's see if that's right. Seems to be. Alright, I might have to get an extension, but let me go ahead and work on this a little bit more and see what kind of progress I can make. It's about freezing outside, so everything's cold and brittle, so I gotta be careful not to break anything. That won't be cool. Thought I'd give you a little closer look here. We've got a 10mm bolt in that corner on the left. One there, one there, one there. And then your fuel injectors are on the top. So there's a, let me get this. There's a fuel injector there, and there, and there. There's a bolt there, and a bolt there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts. And I suppose a guy could take this bracket off if he wanted to give himself a little more room. which I might do if it's not too hard to get off of there. That looks like a couple of bolts. Otherwise, I'm going to try to fish it out of here through the wiring harnesses. I might unclip this one and unclip this one, see if I can get that up out of there. Or, if it's not too much work, I could undo the wiring harness on the fuel injectors, get those out of the way. Let me work on this a little bit more, see what's going to be the easiest. So you don't have to take that bracket off, obviously, because guys don't. But I took it off. It's two 13mm nuts that hold it on there. It comes off pretty easy. And as you can see down there, let me zoom in a little bit, that gives you a nice wide open area to go forward with the valve cover when you get it loose. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen those bolts. And those bolts are made to loosen up and stay in the valve cover, but you still got to be careful. And then the new valve cover gasket comes with these rubber grommets. I'm assuming those are new ones where the bolts go. So I'll clean up all the bolts, clean up everything, put it back together, but I'll be back shortly. Well, I got the bolts all loose. Let's see how hard that thing is to get off. Oh, that was easy. I think I'm going to take my needle nose pliers and pull all those bolts out of there. That way I don't have to worry about clearing those. So let me get that done. I got all those out of there. I only dropped one and I was able to get it easily. So here's your bolts with your rubber grommet. Now something you got to keep track of. There's a metal sleeve, or maybe it's plastic, but you got your rubber grommet. Let me grab another one. The rest of them just came apart. This is the sleeve that slips over there, so you don't want to lose that. Make sure you keep track of them. And then the rubber grommet just slips over that sleeve. So I got to get this one off, but the rest of them all just fell off. So let me see if I can pull that off of there now. I'm going to release that wiring harness because it's kind of in a bind. Okay, there we go, we got her off. You can see how dirty that is on the outside edge there. I'll show you in there closer. This thing's been leaking for a long time, I'm sure. I've done a couple valve cover gaskets on 4 cylinders that just sit right on the top, and they're nice and easy. So the biggest thing you got to do now is clean all this junk out of there. Make sure this whole thing going around where the gas is going to sit is nice and clean. Now I've got some gray Scotch-Brite pads. I might rub that on there and then take a rag and wipe it all off, make sure it's nice and clean. Then I'll do the same thing with the valve cover gasket, and then I'll try to fish that back in there. This one here, this is the one that kind of puts you in a bind, so I want to see if there's a way to get that up out of there a little better. And then I think it'll slip right back in there. So let me work on that a little bit. Well, here's the old valve cover gasket. It's pretty crusty. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that baby cleaned up. There's the old gasket. I watched one video. The guy said you can just about bet if it has an orange gasket, it's going to leak. And this one definitely has been leaking. I think it's just flattened down. Actually, it's still a little bit pliable, but it's definitely leaking. So I'm going to get this cleaned up, and let me show you the cylinder head. I got that cleaned up as best I am going to, I think. Oh, I wiped it with the rag. Yeah, I might hit that a little bit more. And I sprayed some, I tried scraping it, but I didn't want to gouge the metal, so I stayed away from scraping. I just used that gray Scotch-Brite pad and got all the chunks off. It's really smooth now, at least it feels like it. I'm going to wipe a little bit more up in that area with a damp cloth with the carb cleaner. And then hopefully I can get the new gasket in. I'll show you that. Get this thing to slip in there. Now this, I can't move this because there's a wire harness going down. It holds it tight. I got this loose, so at least that comes out of the way. So hopefully I can get it in there and not have the gasket come off. Probably the hardest part of this job is cleaning everything. Now this is not perfect, but I cleaned the groove out. I had some gasoline, I put it on this cloth rag and cleaned it out that way, and I used a small screwdriver, put it around the rag, or the rag around it, and I went around that groove a couple times. And then I got the outside much better than it was. If you remember how black and caked up with oil it was. It's not perfect, but it looks a lot better. Now when you put this gasket in there, there's a little tab right here that goes into a groove right there. And these do have a left and a right, so a front and a back. So don't put the wrong one on there, because if you do, this tab will be in the wrong place. I think. It seemed like, yeah, if you look at it on this one, that would be the top because it's more toward the top and the gasket goes down in further. So just make sure you put them in right, otherwise you'll probably have a leak there. I started to put that one on here and I realized that can't be right. So I've got it all pressed in to the groove. Now I'm just gonna put my new rubber boots back in there, and then I think I'll wait until I have this in to put my bolts in. That way I have one less thing to hang up on. And like I said, remember these, I haven't got that one off yet, but remember these little sleeves in there. I've got to spray these down with some brake cleaner, get those a little bit cleaner. But I'll put the new boots in. Hopefully I can get this set down in there and it will stay where it's supposed to. We'll see how that goes. The way these are made, they have a little ridge on them, so they kind of snap into place. That way they don't just fall out. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. So I got them snapped in. I'm going to set the valve cover on there. I guess I'll go ahead and film it. You guys can watch me. We'll see how it goes. Looks like one of the blue rubber boots popped out, but it didn't go anywhere, so I just pushed it back into place. Now I can clean up my bolts, slide those in there. If you could get that wiring harness out of the way, that would really help. Or if you took your fuel injector harnesses off, that would help too. It's a pretty tight fit, but it does go in there. Well, I did exactly what I didn't want to do. I was trying to put the bolt in this last one, and the bolt and the rubber grommet fell out and went down in behind the exhaust manifold. I could see it a minute ago, but I can't see it now. I've got this small telescopic magnet. I'm going to try to get in there and fish it out of there. I hope the bolt is still in the rubber grommet, because otherwise I won't be able to get the rubber grommet out of there. Wish me luck. Well, I was able to get the bolt out with the sleeve on it, but I can't get the rubber grommet out because it's rubber and I can't even see it. I tried to reach in there with a skinny screwdriver. So what I'm going to do is rob Peter to pay Paul. I'm not doing the back valve cover gaskets right now, so I'm going to steal one of those grommets and replace this one. I don't remember if I mentioned it, but I ended up switching to a 3/8 inch socket instead of a 10 millimeter, and it works better. So I'm going to go ahead and start tightening down those bolts slowly but surely. I'm going to finish tightening them by hand so we don't have any problems, hopefully. Well, I was going to grab another extension, but I guess, yeah. Let me grab another extension. Sorry to leave you hanging there. I don't have much working room there. All right, that should do it for that. Let me go ahead and put everything back together. Then I'll start it up, check and see if I have any leaks. Let's hope I don't. Well, I don't have a parts cleaner, so I scraped it with the wire brush, sprayed it with some parts cleaner. I don't have one of those parts cleaner bins. So I just did it by hand, but it looks a heck of a lot better. So I'll get that put back on, get the wiring harness back in place, spark plug back in place. We should be just about there. I wasn't paying much attention. That has a nut and a bolt, so the little bolt goes in that hole down there. Oops, there. and then the nut I think goes on here. So let me get those put in there. I just put them together so I could get them clean, get the junk off of them. Well, everything's back together except the cover. I'll start her up. I sure hope there aren't any leaks. I got the old flashlight. I'm going to take a look for some leaks. Well, it seems to be good. So, if you guys have to replace the top cover gaskets on a 3800, at least on the front, that's how you do it. The back, obviously, is not that easy. You got to remove the alternator. There's a bracket back there. And then, of course, you're going to have to stand on your head to clean it and get the bolt in and out. That's why I'm not even going to attempt it. But I noticed the front one was leaking pretty good. As soon as you start it and it ran for a little bit, it would start smoking. And I think I've eliminated that problem. I also, when I bought it, had a new battery. And one day it would be charging, and the next day it wouldn't be charging. So I replaced the alternator, and that fixed that problem. It probably had a good battery. And then this terminal was loose. It was stripped out, so I fixed that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope this helps somebody out.